And it's the pre-show, and it's live, and all that good stuff. Welcome, everyone. We're 10 minutes to go, 9 minutes to go. So if you were to watch this on the replay and wonder, why am I sitting through all of this? We would all have the same question. Because you can simply fast forward about 9 minutes to the beginning of the show. Or you can sit here and just watch all this nonsense go on. Let's change the website banner so that people know we are live. Let's put professorbuster.com/live in here and in there. What else? What am I missing? I'm missing a presentation of some kind. That's it. Let's change the... Look, there's a free update available. That's exactly what I want to do right now. Let's change the settings and the promo bar and modify those settings. We'll do a camera check, which I'm sure will be delightful. Let's see. We should have it say my Network Plus study group is right now. Click here to join us. And should point to /live. If you're watching this on the YouTube, you can head over to professormesser.com/live where I'm watching the chat room, because you'll notice there isn't one on YouTube. Now, if you're watching this on the YouTube replay, there's obviously a comment section there. It's just not a live chat for those things. All right, that's updated. We've got Socrative going. You folks are already in there, Socrative.com. Click on student login, go to room Professor Messer, which I could just put in the chat by typing Socrative.com student login, or just room Professor Messer. There we go. What else we got going on? We're recording. You can see my Cylons going there. Camera check. Hi, everybody. Hi. It's camera check there. 3 and 4. That's beautiful. Oh my gosh, it's lovely. Do we have numbers? Yes, we do. Okay. What else is going on? What else do we want to do? Woo! That'll get your throat going. Hello. Me. All right. What else we got? I think we're pretty much ready. We could probably clean up the screen a little bit. Just little stuff you can't even see from where you're sitting, but I can see from where I'm sitting. Do we have everything we have ready to go? I think we did. Some mail. What is that? What is this? Okay. We got that and this and the other thing. All right. That's pretty good shape then. I really didn't have to put everything back together this week. Wasn't that nice? Let's see what's going on in the bird feeder. There's probably some interesting stuff happening there. If the live stream is up, I haven't even checked it today. Oh, it is. There's the live stream at birdfeeder.live, which is in my backyard. There it is. See, it's cut off there. Why is that cut off? Why is the see where the date and the time are cut off there? See, now that bothers me. How much time have I got? I'm gonna go fix this. I made it back before it changed. Let's watch it change, shall we? Some mystery person will come in and update the date so that you can actually read it. There it goes. See? It's the little thing. Birdfeeder.live is a real thing. This is birdfeeder.live. It's not a joke. It's in my backyard. It's a real, honest-to-goodness bird feeder. This is the chat for Network Plus Live, Eric. Which you won't hear me say until like 20 seconds later. So I don't know. I just don't type it in. Not many birds out there, but at least it's not a hurricane. So that's a big bonus. That's always nice. What else is going on here? This is sort of it. Now you can see me looking at the bird feeder. It's a little, what time is it? Shouldn't we be doing something about this point? I have 3.5 minutes. Oh, there's clock there. The clock on my mixer here never updated. It's got the wrong time on it. Oh, good question about what bird seed I use. Boy, I wish I knew what that was. The Mrs. Professor Messer takes care of the bird feed. I think she gets it from Wild Birds Unlimited. So it's one of their blends. It looks delicious, I have to say. So there is that. Well, sunflower seeds are good, but we have different birds here that like different kinds of feed, and the feed will change depending on the time of the year as well. And there are some sunflowers in there. The jays seem to like the sunflowers. The cardinals seem to like everything. What else have we got going on? Is the air conditioner good? I think we got good cooling. We've got 2 minutes. 2 minutes, Mr. Sinatra. 2 minutes. Are there squirrels out there? I've placed the feeder far enough away that the squirrels can't jump into it from the tree. And boy, are they angry about that. They're really not happy. Yeah, I'm not really talking about birds as much as killing time for 2 minutes. Really, that's what I'm doing. I've got some good questions today, too. Got some good stuff going on. I updated the iOS on my mobile phone, which was awesome. Runs like a champ. Going to do it on the iPad later today, which is right in front of me. But I have to use it, so I thought I would not do it before I used it, because that's just asking for trouble. And as much as I like trouble, that's not the kind of trouble I want. All right, we've got a minute or so. 1 minute. Let's get ready, everybody. I think we're in good shape. We've got recording. 2 recordings here because YouTube messed up the recording last week. So I went back to the original that I took here. In fact, I wonder if I just shouldn't use this one. It takes more to edit, but it puts it up at 1080p. I could actually broadcast at 1080p, which is probably the better idea, but what do you want? Today's coffee from the home office in Tallahassee, Florida, is a Peet's. It's a Peet's coffee. It's the Major Dickinson. It's the Peet's coffee. Those are M audio speakers, and they're pretty. They're brown. I like them because they're brown. They sound good too, but they're brown. I like the wood grain, or the faux wood grain, or the somewhat wood grain. Why are we not doing a show? Let's do a show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the September 2016 Professor Messer Network Plus Study Group. This is the live study group where I sit down and ask you some questions, and hopefully you've got some answers for me. We do this all online. It's all a live event. You're able to participate interactively. So we get to see how you do. Well, maybe not you, but how all of us do. I don't track you as an individual. So you can feel free to take guesses at these questions and not feel too bad, because I'm not going to point to you and say this is what your answer was, but you'll know what your answer was. And hopefully by the time we're done with this first hour, you will have learned something that you needed to know for your Network Plus certification exam. In the second hour, I'll just open up the phone lines. We'll talk about whatever happens to be interesting for you. It could be Network Plus related. It might not be Network Plus related. It doesn't really matter. The phone lines are open regardless to do that. There's quite a bit happening with the Network Plus. It's one that's been, it's now been out for about a year or so. If you wanted to see all of my Network Plus videos, they are available for you to watch absolutely free. Every minute of every video of a video series created specifically for the Network Plus exam. So this is something that I encourage you to do. If you want an offline version of this course, you can always check out the offline offerings. You can purchase those at professormesser.com/getnetplus. And don't forget about the things that are happening throughout the week. There's always tweets that are coming out. Every Tuesday is a Network Plus pop quiz of the week. That might be something you're interested in doing. You can sign up on my website at professormesser.com. Of course, watch the things that are happening at professormesser.com/YouTube. For those of you subscribed to my YouTube channel, thank you very much. It goes a long way to keeping this whole thing going. And of course, don't forget about the vouchers. There's a discounted vouchers you can get on my website, professormesser.com/vouchers. Do not pay full price for your vouchers. Even if you don't get the vouchers from me, don't pay full price for your vouchers. It just doesn't make sense to do anything like that. The Network Plus course that I have out there is at professormesser.com/getnetplus. And those are all 1080p videos. I include MP3 audio. I include my course notes. I'll tell you all about the course notes for this as we go. Also, I have a chat room here, so I'm watching the chat room. We can always get questions from there as well, and comments and everything that's going by. So feel free. It's the live event chat that I'm watching. So make sure you're in the right chat room so I can see exactly what you're doing with those pieces. I do have that question of the week that I send out on Tuesday, but many of you have said, I want more questions. So I've taken these years of study groups that we've done, and I've taken all of the questions, and I've been creating these 20 question practice tests on my website. So I have some for A+, some for Security Plus, and I've got some for Network Plus out there right now as well. And I'm going through the older study groups that we've done, and I'm curating the questions. I'm making sure they're up to date for the latest exam. Some of them I'm making a little harder or a little easier, depending on how well they work the first time through. There's 80 A+. I think I even put more A+ questions out there. There's Network Plus questions, at least 80 Network Plus questions out there right now. Just go to professormesser.com/popquiz. There's the URL. professormesser.com/popquiz, and you can as well take advantage of those. Maybe you wait until the study group is over. They're just always going to be there at professormesser.com/popquiz. Be able to do that as well. As I mentioned, you get to answer the questions today, and this is how you do it if you're live. Now, if you're watching this in replay, you can't do this. This is only for the folks that are watching live. If you're interested in attending live, you can always find out the next study group at professormesser.com/calendar. There is a service that I use called Socrative. So go to socrative.com and maybe pop open another window. You can always do this on your mobile device. There's mobile device apps. Get the Socrative student app to be able to do that. It's always useful. You can, of course, when you get to that website, socrative.com, click the student login button. You can see what that student login button looks like right there. And go to the room, Professor Messer. You have to type this whole thing in. Make sure you type it correctly or you're not going to see the questions. PROFESSORMESSER. It rhymes, but it's spelled different. So you'll figure it out. If you're in a room and there's no questions, you know you're in the wrong room. You want to back out of there and go to the correct room for that. If you've already been in the room, you've answered a question, you're waiting for the next question, then you're in the right place. And you just stay right there. You don't have to move. You don't have to change the URL. You don't have to click anything. It will automatically show you the next question when it is available. So if you go to that link, you'll know you're in the right room because a question is up right now that says, how long have you been studying for your Network Plus certification? You'll be able to answer. What I see on my side are answers like this. So you can see interactively everyone that is answering those questions. I have less than 3 months, 3 to 6 months, 6 to 9 months, 9 months to a year, over a year, or I already have my Network Plus certification. 9% of you, 8% of you or so already have your Network Plus. You might be watching this first hour for continuing education credit. And I will be giving you a special code word sometime within this first hour. Then I'll also give you the instructions on how to redeem that code word for a continuing education unit credit. So something to go through. 46% of us, almost half of you here, have been studying this for less than 3 months. Welcome aboard. Congratulations on this journey. I think the Network Plus certification is one that everyone should have in IT because it affects every component of everything that is out there in technology. It's touching a network. It's connecting to the network. This is good information to have. If you have been looking at the Network Plus exam, you will notice that it is an exam that came out in 2015. So it's been out about a year and a half now. And it's one that usually we expect these exams to be updated about every 3 years. So if you've just started studying, you have plenty of time. We're talking about a year and a half before we would ever expect there to be another version of the Network Plus exam. So if you're watching this on replay, you'll probably need to extrapolate what date it is and figure out 3 years from that February 28th, 2015 date. There is also in these exams, I guess about 90 questions, but I've also got on the screen here the Network Plus exam objectives. If you have not downloaded the exam objectives, you should do this immediately. Go to the Google machine, type in CompTIA exam objectives, or go to professormesser.com/objectives, takes you to the same place, and download the Network Plus objectives. It tells you everything you need to know for the exam. And it gives you a perfect checklist to use so that you'll know when you're ready to take this exam, walk into the room, and pass the first time through. And if you know everything in the exam objectives, you will easily pass your Network Plus exam. And I really do mean that. If you know everything that's in these exam objectives, you're not going to have a problem at all. Well, let's do some questions then. That's why we're all here, is to start stepping through some of these Network Plus exam objectives. All of these questions are coming directly from the Network Plus exam objectives themselves. So you will know that if you get a question today, it's something that could be asked, or part of that topic could certainly be on the exam. So our first question of the month is right here. The question is, in which of the following would you be most likely to use a looking glass? Now, I have this one set up as a multiple choice question. So if you're watching live, you can go to Socrative.com, go to room name Professor Messer. Now, remember, don't answer in the chat room. We want everybody to try. If you don't know what it is, or even if you do know what it is, you want to give it a try yourself, as if you're sitting down on the exam and you're going to answer this question for yourself. So the questions are, or the potential answers are of this question, would you be most likely to use a looking glass to view hairline cracks in fiber optic connections, to capture and view network protocol decodes, to view the table of MAC addresses in a switch, to test the speed of an internet connection, or to view the routing table at a network service provider? One of these 5 things is the most likely reason to use a looking glass. This is very common for the CompTIA exams to ask you what the best answer is, or the most likely answer. And so you have to go through all of these. Even if there are multiple answers that could be correct, you have to pick the best one. So there is some knowledge you're going to need to put everything in its right place. So if you think you know the answer, go to Socrative.com, to the room name Professor Messer. Click that student login and type in the word Professor Messer, all one word, and it will take you to this question, and you'll be able to answer this one too. One of the things that we were laughing about, and I say laughing about, we weren't trying to be mean, but we were sort of talking about last week's study group, which was an A+ study group. For some reason, the questions were really hard. We didn't do as well as I would have hoped. And so what I did was go back to the Network Plus questions and try to make them just as hard. I think sometimes it's better to get a question wrong than to get it right, especially at this point. Obviously not on the exam. You don't want to get it wrong on the exam, but right now is the time to make mistakes. And the only way you're going to learn is if you make those mistakes. So take a stab at this. Do not go after this and try. Somebody's already Googling. Oh, Looking Glass. Yes, that's an American pop music group. All right, so Google doesn't work so well all the time. Now stop Googling and just take a stab at it. Try to figure it out yourself. A number of you already answered. So let's see how we did on this first question. How did we do? Well, we've got a mix. Let's see, 39%, that's a clear number one, said to view hairline cracks in fiber optic connections. 25%, I guess that's a solid second place, said to view the routing table at a network service provider. And double digits, a third place, 18% said capture and view network protocol decodes. Single digits for viewing the table of MAC addresses and testing the speed of an internet connection. So this is one where I think we would try to figure out Looking Glass. It's one that is important to know for the exam. Looking Glass is one of those topics that's in that list of exam objectives. So if you saw this question, you thought, what's a looking glass? What are you talking about? You need to make sure you have those exam objectives so that you know what the different topics are. Looking glass. This is something that really does become extremely important when you're working as a network administrator, especially if you're connecting to multiple internet sites. And of course, you're going through multiple wide area network and internet network providers to be able to do that. There are, if you ever look at an internet service provider, there are an amazing number of routes and connections to be able to get from point A to point B. It's never a direct line. There are always multiple paths you can go. There are many different ways for this to work. This is something that becomes a little bit of a challenge because we have to connect to these sites all over the world. There are multiple providers between point A and point B. And if you ever run into a problem, trying to find a person who can correct that issue might be a problem in itself. You usually do have a help desk number you can call, but you're not going to be able to talk to the network administrator at the ISP that is in France where you think the problem might be occurring. You need to instead try to figure out what's happening yourself and be able to tell the provider as much information as possible. Part of the challenge, of course, is you have no idea how the provider's network is set up. You're not the person who configured the provider's routers. You have no idea where the connections go. But there is a way for you to tell, and that's by using a looking glass. Most of providers out there, the big ones, are going to provide you with a front end that is going to give you access to some important metrics, statistics, and configurations for the routers that are currently in place. So if you go to the trace route and you run a trace route and you see these different IP addresses, you may be wondering, what do those routers see as the correct site, as the correct route to the site we're going to? So this is one that you can do. This is a screenshot of a looking glass site where I went to one. I think this was sprint.net looking glass. And you can go to these looking glass as well. These are publicly available. So you can click AT&T looking glass, Sprint looking glass. You can put in any internet service provider and looking glass, and you'll probably find the right site. I chose the Sprint site in their Anaheim, California location. I wanted to tell that router that's there to show me a BGP route, and I put in a very specific route. This route happens to go to Google, the Google DNS 8.8.8.8. I just put a 24-bit subnet mask, so it would be able to get anything that's on that subnet. I don't even know if that is the subnet mask they use, but I just said, show me everything that is that particular route, and there's the BGP entries. It queried the router that was at Anaheim, which is SI-GW25-ANA. It must be their 25th gateway for Sprint at Anaheim, and it gave me the actual routing table from that router. That's powerful information. Now, obviously, if you're studying for your Network Plus right now, none of that might make a lot of sense. The output may not be specific. You can also, though, run pings and trace routes from here as well. Run a ping from the router. Where does the router go? You know, if I can get to the router, why is the router not getting to the right place? Let me look at the routing table. And then, of course, then you can open a ticket with the provider and say, I think on this router that it's showing this route and it really should be showing something else. So this is one that can be really useful. Let's see how we did. So if you were one of the 41% that said view hairline cracks and fiber optic connectors, it seems like a looking glass would be good for that, but that's not what a looking glass really is. Looking glass indeed is E, the 28% of you that said view the routing table at a network service provider. That would be the most likely use given all of these different options that we have available. So if you answered E, you got this one absolutely correct. Let's go to the next question, shall we? Let's see if this one's just as difficult. I shouldn't laugh. That's not the point of this. The point is to see how well we could just enjoy ourselves, right? The point is just to have a good time. Which of the following would best describe multiplexing? I think this is a little bit better. It was not a tricky question. It's a very simple, straightforward question. This is another simple, straightforward question. Which of the following would best describe multiplexing? The answers are multiple data streams are combined into a single stream over a shared medium, or multiple redundant links are used to transmit information, or is it C, multiple IP addresses are routed from a single source, or multiple symbols are used to transmit data through a network link, or multiple redundant devices are used to ensure network uptime and availability. One of these things best describes multiplexing. Which could it possibly be? If you think you know what it is, do not answer in the chat room. You should instead go to Socrative.com to the student login, go to room name Professor Messer, or if you're already there, you just sit there and wait. The questions will change magically in front of you, and you can answer these questions. You can tell with this one, certainly the multi part of it, I thought, well, that means a multiple, right? Except all of the answers I gave you had multiples in them. So just knowing that there are multiple ones, perhaps that isn't enough. We still need more information to be able to answer this one. This is something we use constantly, this technology of multiplexing. And it's one that if I go back to the very first networking I ever did across lease lines to remote sites, we were using these multiplexing connections even then, and we continue to use this technology today. So the folks in the chat room that are looking for the room name for Socrative, I don't know where you would possibly be able to find something like that. Maybe someone can help you out. Maybe somebody can give you an idea about where it is on the screen. I don't know. Maybe it's in there somewhere. Maybe somebody will help you with that one. There is a lot to know about the multiplexing side of things. Fortunately, on the exam, you're really just needing an overview of what multiplexing really is. Let's see how we did with this. We can see that 65% have said, well, that's multiple data streams combined into a single stream over a shared medium. 13%, we're dropping way off, distant number 2, said that multiple redundant devices are used to ensure network uptime and availability, and then single digits for the other ones in here. It seems that in this particular case, we had this multiple data streams combined into a single stream. 63% of us said, yeah, that's got to be what it is, right? That has to be the idea of multiplexing. And again, this would be one where you folks are absolutely correct. Well done with this. Multiple streams combined into a single stream and then broken out again is multiplexing or muxing. You'll hear it called. Hey, somebody check the mux. Is the mux working properly? For some reason, we're unable to say multiplexer whenever we're communicating with other human beings. We're taking a bunch of little smaller links, combining them into a larger link. This was very common to do back in the day. We still use this technology today, but it was probably even more important when networking was just getting going. Lease lines were the way that we were communicating. They were extremely expensive between point A and point B. And we would have multiple devices at a remote site, but only one wide area network connection or one lease line. And what we would do is put multiplexers on both sides, connect up all those diverse multiple different components, and use that single link across the connection. It was a very easy way to get data moving between point A and point B. There's many different ways to multiplex. Some that you'll see these days are the wavelength division multiplexing, where you can have a single fiber, but you're multiplexing different connections through that using different frequencies or different colors of the light as they are going through the fiber. There's time division multiplexing, which multiplexes based on a very set amount of time for each one of the components. There's frequency division multiplexing based on the frequencies across usually a broadband connection. This is a visual of what multiplexing really is, that description I just gave you, where we would have multiple devices at a remote site that needed to connect from one site to another, but you only had one link. So these multiplexers were great. We could put everything into the multiplexer, it would send it across to the other side, and then output it into the correct place when it got to the other side. There's usually multiple ports on the front or back of that multiplexer to be able to do that. It becomes very useful to have that, especially when you only have that single link to be able to use this. Again, you see a lot of this with fiber connections these days. You might have a single fiber going between continents. Well, you want to be able to put as many links and as much information on that as possible. So how do we do with this one? If you answered A, obviously that is the one that was absolutely correct. Multiple data streams are combined into a single stream over a shared medium. Multiple redundant links being used to transmit information is really just redundancy. It's not really multiplexing. You're actually, in many cases, sending some information over one link and another information over another link. There are multiple connections there, not a single shared medium. There are multiple connections. Multiple IP addresses routed from a single source. That's just how routers work. That's routing. Multiple symbols used to transmit data through a network link. We talk about symbols when we refer to the signaling that's being used for our network technologies. So this might be the layer 1 of Ethernet is using signals to go across the line. That is not multiplexing. And multiple redundant devices used to ensure network uptime and availability. Again, that's just redundancy. Usually it's a series of multiple devices, pairs of devices are put in place, and that way if any of the devices happens to go away, it loses power, the software in that device fails, you've got another device there to pick up the load should there be any problem, and that is the best answer, A, for multiplexing, multiple data streams combined into a single stream over a shared medium. Well, don't worry if you didn't get it right, because in that case you just learned something. You'll be ready for the exam when these particular questions show up. Multiplexing is something that was added, I believe, to the N10006. So make sure you know about that. Anytime they add something to the exam, I think it must be pretty important. So that's another important one to know. Let's do another question. Let's keep these questions going. Which of the following, click on my side, would you most likely use to prioritize a database application over streaming media? I'm giving you a very specific scenario here. So there's data being streamed over a connection, but you've also got a database application on this connection. Obviously, you want to prioritize it. So would you use, or most likely use, a proxy, a UTM, a packet shaper, split horizon, or dynamic routing? If you were in charge of this network and you had all this streaming traffic going over a connection and you also had a database application that you needed to prioritize, which of these would you use? Maybe you know for these answers that are there to be able to do that. Yeah, it's bad if the answer you're looking for isn't there. That would not be good. But the answer in this case is there. There is one that is the most likely way to prioritize database applications over a network with tons of streaming traffic. I think that would be a good way to do it. So go to Socrative.com to the room named Professor Messer, and you can answer this as well. If some of you are having problems with the stream, you can always try reloading. It may be a problem on your side. Unfortunately, stream seems to be going well over here, so would not be the case and working through those. So we've got a lot of ways to configure the way that traffic goes on our networks. And there are a lot of things that we're able to do with this traffic going across the network. This is a very common one, and we're seeing it more and more, probably because so many people are doing so much more streaming. It's almost driving us that way. So many people using YouTube as the default front end for everything. More people listen to music on YouTube than any other method. That's a little crazy because YouTube is video. Even if it's just a static screen, it's a picture, and there's music played behind it, it is the most popular way for people to listen to music. And so if you have all of these people, think of an organization with 1,000 people. All 1,000 people are streaming a video so they can hear audio. This happens all the time. But now you've got a really important database application that your entire company has to be able to use without fault. People are calling in, they're asking for information about their insurance policy, let's say, and you have to be able to answer those questions, except everybody's using all of the network to stream these videos that are going through. In our case, 49% have said, well, then you would use a packet shaper to be able to resolve that. 23% of us said we would use dynamic routing to be able to resolve this issue. 13% said proxy, 10% said a UTM, and 6% said split horizon. So what would be the most likely use or most likely way to prioritize a database application over streaming media. And one of the easiest ways to do this, really the best that's in this particular list of things, is to shape the packets themselves or shape the traffic themselves and be able to change the way traffic flows through your network. That's really what a packet shaper does. This is something that is increasingly common because we're seeing packet shaping being integrated into so many different components on the network. You can packet shape in a firewall these days, something that's extremely common. If you have a network with a configuration exactly the one I just described, which is incredibly common, this happens all the time across the board. And all of these, the previous job, I used to go and take these next generation firewalls and plug them into the network and tell them exactly how much YouTube, how much Vimeo. These are people uploading the YouTube. These are people watching videos on YouTube. Here's the name of the video that they're watching on YouTube. And be able to take the important applications, make the important applications run, but also allow the streaming video to work as well. Blend those things together. The best way to do that is to shape the packets so that certain applications will have a higher priority than others on the network. So to be able to do this, you really want to be able to configure something called quality of service, maybe called the QoS inside of the device that you're using. So you may be on a proxy, or you may be on a firewall, or you may be on a UTM, and it has a packet shaping function or a QoS function to be able to do that. One that becomes extremely useful to be able to make these things happen. So if you are someone who said packet shaper, you got that one absolutely right. 52% of you got packet shaper correct. Now, as I mentioned, there are other devices that often integrate packet shaping capabilities within them. So it would not be unusual to see a proxy that also was able to do packet shaping. It would not be unusual to see a UTM or a firewall to be able to provide some type of packet shaping functionality. That universal threat management device, UTM, sort of the older way that we did firewalling back in the day. Some people still have UTM sitting around, these older proxies and older UTM technologies that people are phasing out and putting in these next generation firewalls for. The idea of changing the way routes work with split horizon and dynamic routing would change the direction that traffic would go in and out of your organization, but it wouldn't change the traffic itself. And in this particular case, we want to be able to change the traffic itself and be able to work with it. So the best option here is the most likely way to prioritize database applications over streaming media, given our options here, is C, packet shaper. The 52% of you got this absolutely correct. Sometimes you'll see packet shaping referred to as QoS. It's the same thing. It's the same terminology used for what effectively is the same functionality for that. There is obviously so much that you have to remember on the exam to be able to know all of these different things that are happening. And obviously, if you go through my videos, I have a huge amount of content that I've put into my videos. I've created my own charts, my own graphics. I've been able to list out everything in my videos so that you can really see these. And if you're a good note taker, then you're probably in good shape. But you'll have to go through all of my videos to be able to get all of the notes that you'll need. Or I've already done this for you, and it's my course notes. This is the N10006 course notes, where I've taken every important piece of information from every one of my videos, and I put them into this 15-page PDF. This has a ton of information inside of it. All the connections, all of the devices that you have to know, they're all here. So here's the Network Plus course notes I have right in front of me. I'll just flip through the first few pages, and you can see all of these are the graphics, the step-by-steps, what a proxy is, the different kind of proxies, sonnet technologies, wide area networks, the different speeds of these wide area networks, connections, and it goes on and on. I tried to take as much information as possible and put it into this. Obviously, this doesn't replace your book. It doesn't replace you watching the videos, but if you've now gone through your book and you've already watched all of the videos and you just need something that summarizes everything into one place, that is what you would use the course notes for. And this is also a great way to help support what we're doing here at Messer Studios. Helps keeps the lights on so that we're able to continue to make the videos and have these live events as well. If you'd like to learn more about the course notes and even consider purchasing them for $10, you can go to professormesser.com/NP PCN Network Plus course notes. And of course, there's links on the website as well if you'd like to learn more about the course notes. And I have course notes for A+, I have course notes for Network Plus, I have course notes for Security Plus, and maybe some more course notes are coming very, very soon. Why? What does he mean by that? I don't know. Let's go to the next question, shall we? We're going to have to find out later, I guess. There is another question up. Which of the following would you commonly associate with PoE? Well, that's not PoE. That's PoE. That's how we say it. Which of the following would you commonly associate with PoE? Let's find out what our different options might be. Would it be a DMARC? Would it be VoIP? Would it be SSH? Would it be UTM? Would it be SC? Which of the following would you commonly associate with PoE? If you think you know what that is, you will be able to go to Socrative.com to the room named Professor Messer. For the folks that were asking about this earlier, some folks are asking, why do you keep saying that? Well, people keep asking. I see the chat room going by and they ask, how can I answer these questions? Here's how you can answer these questions. Go to Socrative.com to the room named Professor Messer, and you indeed would be able to answer this. I think this question's almost a gimme. I almost didn't put this one in here because I think a lot of us have worked with PoE at this point before. This is one, whenever I start looking at trying to figure out technologies, there's certain ones you have to know for the exam. And this is absolutely one you have to know on the exam is PoE. It's in the exam objectives. And you also have to know quite a bit about PoE. That's very specifically asked about certain topics around PoE. So obviously, if you don't know what PoE is, you're going to have a hard time with this question. Take a best guess at it and be able to do that. If you don't know what PoE is, maybe you can go through and try to figure out those pieces as well. Maybe it's something that it's time to learn about what that technology is. Let's see how we did. Which of the following would we commonly associate with PoE? And 79%. That's a pretty detailed, a massive number of people, a vast majority have answered VoIP. We have double digits at least for UTM. I've got 7% said SSH, 3% said DMARC, and only 1% said SC. What if that was the answer? The 1% said SC. That doesn't sound right though, does it? I think we got the 80% of you, I think, are pretty on target with this one. PoE is power over Ethernet. It's a very common way to power up different devices. Think about the way that we power devices now. We might plug in an Ethernet connection, and then we also have to plug in power into a wall jack, into a power source, whether it's a 110 or a 220, or it's different depending on where you are around the world. And that way you're able to connect to the network and provide power for these devices. But what if you didn't need a lot of power? You just needed a little bit of power to get these devices going. Maybe you could avoid plugging into another connection in the wall. What if we just sent power over the Ethernet connection? And one good way to do this is with power over Ethernet. Very often you might have that power in the switch itself. You can buy switches that are specifically for power over Ethernet environments. I have some of these switches in my environment. Before we started the study group, I was showing my bird feeder that's in my backyard. I have a 24/7 live streaming bird feeder at birdfeeder.live. And I'm able to power that with a single Ethernet connection. The camera out there is powered with power over Ethernet. And I have a single switch that's back here in the studio, and I just simply plug into the switch and it powers the camera. I have another camera that requires a little more power, and so I have a power injector. That's what this picture is a power injector where I have Ethernet going in and then Ethernet coming out. And what's happening is it's putting the power on the Ethernet connection in this particular case. That makes it very easy. If your switch doesn't support power over Ethernet, now you can make your switch support power over Ethernet by putting an injector in the middle. This is a single port injector. There are also multi-ports injectors out there. Power over Ethernet has a number of different modes. There is a mode A, where it puts the power on the data pairs themselves. So your data and your power are on the same wire. That's crazy. and yet it works. This is obviously on Ethernet. If you're doing 100 megabit Ethernet, you've got other pairs that are not used. So a mode B power mode for these devices might use the unused pairs to send the power and then have the data pairs be separate. So you need to check to see what type of mode your devices are expecting and what you'll be sending from your power over Ethernet switches or injectors, so you're sending the right amount. There's also different kinds of power over Ethernet standards and different amounts of wattages that are supported. And I talk about all of those, go into in my videos, I go into detail about the different wattages and what you would expect in those environments. So here we did pretty well. You folks knew what VoIP was. VoIP being voice over IP, being the phones that we would have on our desks. And this is very common to have one Ethernet connection for your desk that is not only providing the Ethernet for your computer, but it's also providing the Ethernet connection and the power for your phone. One of the things we want to be able to do is provide more power for more devices over Ethernet. So these standards are always updating and always changing. And you're going to find that we want to update them. Maybe we could just plug in a laptop and the laptop would be powered by Ethernet. Wouldn't that be great? So keep watching what's coming along those lines, and maybe that's something that we will see. Now, if you're watching this study group for continuing education credit, then you're going to want to go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. There's a Contact Us link, and it's going to open up a contact form. This form's going to go to me. That contact form asks for your name, your email address. In that contact form, you're going to want to mention that this is the September 2016 Network Plus study group and that the special code for this study group is POE. So you need to remember that special code, POE. Make sure it's in that message somewhere. These are messages that come directly to me. So I manually go through my emails and I send you back, if you've given me all that information and you've given me the right code word, I send you back a message that says you must have watched this. You knew what the code word was. It's a digitally signed email that certifies that 1 hour of continuing education unit. So again, the top or the bottom of my website, click on the Contact Us, put all of your contact information in there for your name, your email address, the September 2016 Network Plus study group, and the special code word of POE. And that way I'll know you saw this. Well, let's talk about troubleshooting. Troubleshooting is something that will certainly come up on the Network Plus exam. And so I want to know what the best way would be to troubleshoot a broadcast storm. What would be the best way? You're in an environment, you think a broadcast storm is happening. How can we troubleshoot this? What's the best way? Well, I've given you some options. You don't have to figure this out or fill in the blank for this one. The options might be to enable spanning tree protocol, reboot the network switches, perform a trace route, take a packet capture, or examine the CPU utilization of a workstation. Which of these would be the best way to troubleshoot a broadcast storm? They always throw that best way in there because some of these could be used to help troubleshoot, but only one of these is really going to be the best way. In fact, here it's very obvious what the best way would be if you know how to troubleshoot a broadcast storm. And troubleshooting a broadcast storm is, of course, mentioned in the CompTIA exam objectives. If you think you know the best way to troubleshoot a broadcast storm, don't put it in the chat room. Don't put any hints in the chat room. Don't even put a direction in the chat room. Instead, go to Socrative.com. Click the student login button and go to room name Professor Messer. Type that in, PROFESSORMESSER, and you'll see the question there, this question. And you'll be able to answer which of these would be the best way to troubleshoot a broadcast storm on your network. This is a good question. I think a number of us are thinking it's one thing, and a number of us are thinking it's another thing. But what is it? What could it possibly be in this case? Okay. Oh, that feels better. Pardon me. Feels better. I have a spray here. I think it's time to use the spray. Maybe, here, we aren't going to subject you to that anyway. Oh, that's a bad spray, but it works so well. So which of these would be the best way to troubleshoot a broadcast storm? Let's see how we answered. We are kind of split on this one, I think. Well, 47%, that's almost a majority, said spanning tree protocol, but right behind it, 32% of you said take a packet capture. 12%, double digits at least, said perform a trace route, and then single digits for examining the CPU utilization of a workstation and rebooting the network switches. So we've got a number of different options that we can go with there. Let's see what the answer really is for broadcast storms. Broadcast storms are kind of a broadcast on your network are a natural part of networking. They're a very common thing that is used for networking. It's how some process is used to communicate to other things on the network. It's pretty inefficient, though, because it doesn't directly communicate to a single device. It simply says, let me tell everybody out there, whether all of these different devices want you to be able to do this or not. It's one that becomes extremely useful, though, at sending a lot of information to multiple devices all at the same time. It's something that you would see, we often refer to as a broadcast storm. Broadcast storms or broadcast domain in the broadcast world is where you've got a single VLAN, because broadcasts don't go past routers. Routers stop broadcasts. So everything within that router or broadcast domain is where we are looking for broadcasts. There's no reason to hop over to another subnet because the broadcasts aren't going to go there. A large number of broadcasts are obviously going to impact performance because you might have all of these devices constantly listening, having to pull in this broadcast information, evaluate whether this information is important or not. If it is important, it uses the broadcast. If it isn't, which most of the time it isn't, it drops it, and it already went through the process of pulling in the packets and examining them, and that takes cycles, that takes CPU, that takes resources to be able to do that. So we want to avoid having a large number of broadcasts that will begin creating problems on our network, slowing down our systems, and usually with broadcast storms, we can really see when they're happening. So troubleshooting these broadcast storms becomes extremely important. The best way to troubleshoot a broadcast storm is to find out where the broadcasts are, find out who's sending them, find out how many of them there are, and the only way to do that is to grab the packets themselves. So you need a protocol analyzer, and this protocol analyzer will allow you to capture all of the packets. You can even filter out everything but broadcasts and examine what broadcasts happen to be going through my network right now. Then you can start researching, why did this device send this broadcast? Are there other options other than this broadcast? Maybe it's something that I have to have. Maybe this broadcast I can't get rid of. It has to be on my network. So maybe I start segmenting my network into smaller subnets. Maybe I put the broadcasting devices on their own subnet that doesn't bother everyone else. It's a great way to go about working with these pieces, working with this technology. And if you're troubleshooting, it's really the only way that you're ever going to know what's going on with broadcasts. Packet captures themselves are a great way to understand what's going on in general because it's so easy to see exactly what's happening on the network. Nothing can hide from a protocol decode. It's fantastic. You can't somehow get away from what a protocol decode is doing. And it's just a great way to go through and really understand not just what's happening with broadcasts, but how are your applications performing? Are there any errors with your application and how it's communicating? This is the way to do it. So those of you that answered take a packet capture, the 36% of you got this one absolutely correct. This is a good way to do it. One of the most common packet capture methods, they're mentioning this in the chat room, is Wireshark. Wireshark is free. It's fantastic. In fact, that's what that screenshot was Wireshark. And it's something you put on almost all of your devices and capture packets right away. Capture them from a Ethernet network, capture them from a wireless network, et cetera, et cetera. Broadcast storms are something very specific to devices sending broadcasts. A spanning tree protocol is designed to stop loops on your network. And when devices are looping, it's looping everything. It's looping unicasts, it's looping broadcasts, it's looping multicasts. The spanning tree protocol has nothing to do with broadcast storms, though. Broadcast storms are something that are very specific to how many broadcasts are being sent out. Now, obviously, if you have a loop on your network, all of the traffic on your network is going to be sent multiple times on your network. That's a different kind of problem than a broadcast storm. That's a network loop, and you are down at that point. It's not that a broadcast storm is going to slow down your systems. You'll see the performance will not be as great, but a loop on your network completely stops everything from happening. So broadcast storms are what you would solve with a packet capture. Spanning tree protocol is what you would use to prevent a loop on your network from occurring. And it's not something you would turn on to resolve a problem with broadcast storms. That is not the way that you would use spanning tree protocol. 11%, you would not be performing a trace route. Our problem isn't with routing. That's not our issue. We would not be, well, I guess you could reboot the network switches, but when they come back up, you're still going to have broadcasts. So that's not going to help you much either. And examining the CPU utilization of a workstation may help you determine that a broadcast storm was occurring, but it's not going to help you from a troubleshooting perspective. You need to find out how you can resolve this broadcast. You would do that with a packet capture. Grab your Wireshark, plug it into the network. Maybe you want to do this anyway. Grab Wireshark. This is a great task for you. Go on your network, grab Wireshark, take a capture for about 30 seconds, and try to find all the different broadcasts on your network. You will be absolutely surprised at what you find. I guarantee that. You have no idea what's going on in your network right now. It's shocking, all of the things that are happening out there. There's and another way that you could perform some real-world hands-on is with a lab. Maybe you want to set up your own lab, or maybe you want to use the one from GTS Learning. They already have labs set up in their live labs. You can find us at professormesser.com/netlabs. That's where you get the special discount from GTS Learning. They've also got 200 practice questions for Network Plus. The labs themselves are great. There's tons of labs that they have here. Let's do one on IPv4 addressing and being able to run static routing or these different pieces. It sets up all of these different devices. Boy, this is a big static routing lab. And it begins booting all of these multiple devices here. You can power them on or power them off. You can even see them booting right here on the screen as they're booting up. You've got these different edge routers and WAN routers. You've got these different other devices that are out there. And it takes you step by step through going through the lab and working through these pieces. And it tells you exactly what to put into your Windows screen and what you would expect to find. All of these are live Windows devices, and they are all available 24/7. You simply connect to the internet and you're able to access these through your browser. You don't have to have special software. I'm simply using Chrome to be able to do it in my browser right here. I'm not having to do any additional software installations to make that happen. And there's a special price as well. Instead of paying $159 over on the GTS Learning site, you can follow my link and get it for $99, which also includes their Network Plus book, which also includes their practice questions. They just put everything in there for $99, which is a great way to have everything all in one. So you can watch my videos, you can read their book, you can use their live labs, and you should have everything you need to be able to perform all of these different tasks and do well on your Network Plus exam. Let's see if I can get one of these systems running here on my computer so I can give you a feel for what they look like. One of the things I like about the live labs is they are so fast and being able to run these different front ends. It's as if I'm sitting in front of a Windows device already. Let's move some of these over. You can change what happens on the screen. So here's a Windows device, and it's a regular Windows. In fact, here's Wireshark. Let's run Wireshark on this system. I want to be able to watch my packet captures come up. So I've got Wireshark running that's here. Maybe I want to also just run a packet capture. I don't know which one is here, but we'll run a packet capture on this system, and we'll just see if anything's, I probably am not even sending anything through here, but look how fast that is to be able to use it back and forth. It's a standard Windows device. So you can grab oh, there's an ARP right there. So you're seeing the packets come in real time. I can click on them. I can use this as if it's a standard Wireshark that I'm sitting. It's almost like it's local. It's so fast. So I'm able to see all the different decodes and exactly what's in there. And it's got, in this particular lab, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 devices, 3 routers, 3 switches, and a workstation to be able to run through the static routing configuration. So it's something you might want to consider doing. Of course, if you've got your own lab, that's something I highly recommend that you get hands-on. Or if you want to use the labs that are already set up at GTS Learning, you can go to professormesser.com/netlabs for more information. This is one where, oh, by the way, I moved away from this and suddenly the routers are coming up. You've got these Cisco devices that are booting, all happening on the screen right there behind the scenes. That's pretty great. Let's do some more questions, shall we? Let's keep going with this. A lot of the questions you're going to get or see on the exam have to do with wireless networking. This is a fill in the blank. So you can think of this as something that is, I would say, a performance-based. So this is certainly something you may be presented with on the exam. It might be a fill in the blank. It might be a putting things in a particular order. It might be a matching. They might put you at a command prompt and ask you to complete the command prompt. In this case, I'm asking you to type in a very specific standard here. I want to know which wireless standard uses 2.4 gigahertz and has a maximum theoretical throughput of 54 megabits per second. So if you think you know the answer, I'm not giving you a multiple choice on this one. You have to be able to type this in yourself and give me the full and complete wireless standard that I'm looking for here. This is one very useful to have that there. Maybe you should be able to try out those pieces and have those there. Yeah, the folks in the chat room talking about those different pieces and what you can use. There are other components, GNS3, you have to have Cisco code for that. Packet Tracer is certainly available from Cisco, but that's Cisco. It's sort of outside the scope of the Network Plus exam. Really, it's about the Network Plus focuses on configuring things on the network from a network administrator perspective, regardless of the specific switch or the specific router type you might be using. Very common to do that. That's one I like to put things together in my lab, whether it's a virtual lab or a real lab, and be able to try different scenarios. If I unplug this, what happens? If I try a trace route, does it go where I thought it would go? It's a great way to be able to do that and be able to work through those pieces. Now, I've got a lot of people that are answering. I'm just going to flip over to the answers. You can see a lot of people said 802.11. Well, I need more detail here. I'm looking for the standard using 2.4 gigahertz and a maximum theoretical throughput of 54. Some people said 802.11b. Some people said 802.11g. It's like I've got some B's and some G's. There's an N. Folks, there's an AC. See, we got a couple in there. I think most people, as we scroll through here, most people are saying G. There are quite a few B's also listed in that list of answers that's there. Let's talk about which one of these standards it would be. It would be 802.11g. 802.11g was the update, if you will, an upgrade to 802.11b. And we say it was an update or an upgrade because it uses the same frequencies as 802.11b. It uses 2.4 gigahertz, but it increased the amount of throughput that we could get over this wireless network to 54 megabits per second, which happens to be the same as 802.11a when A and B were obviously released simultaneously. And we had to kind of wait for the more common, which was the 802.11b, the 2.4 gigahertz products, to catch up to the same speeds that A happened to have. This is something that is backwards compatible with 802.11b, uses the same frequencies. We can have B devices and G devices on the same network simultaneously. Obviously, we have the same issues with other devices conflicting with 2.4 gigahertz. So if you have some of the older cordless phones in your environment, you have baby monitors. If anything, it's not on wireless these days. It's probably using 2.4 gigahertz. That's one that becomes really useful. The 2.4 gigahertz and the range of these things I've listed in this table that you can also get from the video and from my course notes. And you can see indeed the one that is 2.4 gigahertz and 54 megabits per second of maximum theoretical throughput would indeed be 802.11g. So that is the answer for that 802.11g and being able to work with that. If you answered 802.11g, you got it right. It is not 802.11a. It's not 802.11n. It's not AC. The correct answer in this case, that is the question of, let's back up to the question, the wireless standard using 2.4 gigahertz and a maximum theoretical throughput of 54 megabits is indeed 802.11g. Well done with that one. I think we can squeeze in another question before the hour gets away from us, don't you? I think we can do that. Let's see if we can get another question. I have one for you right here. And the question is, which of the following is an APIPA address? I would like a bottle of APIPA right now. Which of the following is an APIPA address? I have a number of addresses for you being able to do this. 127.0.0.1, 192.168.55.2, 10.2.44.77, 169.254.16.9, 172.16.172.88. And I'm just saying numbers over and over again in an effort to step through all of those. But those are the possible answers, A, B, C, D, and E, for what would be an APIPA address and all of those things. Hopefully you know what the answer is. First, you have to know what an APIPA address is, and then you have to be able to find it in this list of things that I have listed here. You may be able to figure this out and figure out what all of these different options might be. I think most of you would do well. This would probably be a good one to kind of go out on after our hour is over with here for answering and getting an APIPA address. This is something you really don't want to see, is it? You don't want to be in the position of seeing an APIPA address. Yeah, this is a holdover from the A+ exam too. So if you pass your A+, this should be very familiar to you for the APIPA. Let's see how we did with this. How did we do? We have, well, 88%. There again, we have a vast majority of people that said the answer 169.254.16.9. So APIPA is the answer that says, sort of referencing anyway, the automatic private IP addressing, APIPA. This is an IP address that's assigned to a device automatically so it can at least communicate with other devices on its local subnet. We call that a link local address. This is not an IP address that's routable, however. If you have this IP address assigned to your computer, you're not able to communicate to the internet or outside of your local subnet even. You're really locally bound when you've been assigned one of these APIPA addresses. You're usually given one of these addresses because you weren't able to communicate to a DHCP server and a static address has not been configured on your device. So we have to put something there. So this is a good something that's put in place. The actual range that is reserved is between 169.254.0.1 through 169.254.255.254. But the first and last 256 addresses are reserved. So we don't assign those. So functionally, when you take out the reserved addresses, the functional block that you can have available to be assigned to these devices is 169.254.1.0 through 169.254.254.255. These are automatically assigned. Once your device figures out, oh, I can't get to a DHCP server, let me automatically assign myself an address using this APIPA range. Let me first send an ARP out over the network. I'll ask if anybody has that particular address yet. I'll listen. If nobody has that address, I'll take it. So we can put a lot of different devices there to be able to do that. If you were to look at your Windows machine, it will tell you that you've been assigned 169.254.228.109. That's been configured here. My auto configuration IP address was put in there. Notice the subnet mask is just a Class B type of subnet mask, a 16-bit subnet mask, a /16, 255.255.0.0, and being able to work through all of those pieces. There is a list of all of those addresses out on my website in the videos, but don't confuse APIPA with what might be a private address. All the other addresses on here were either a loopback address or a private address that happens to be in there. And there's a list of the private addresses, what you might see referred to as the RFC 1918 addresses, out to be able to work through those. And it's pretty important when you're working through all of this that you step through what all of those addresses are so that you know if you're asked which of the following is an APIPA address, that you'll be able to answer that. Well, that brings us to the thing that I always like to say every month, and I've said it a couple of times already, and it's really important. If you have not downloaded the CompTIA exam objectives, you must do this. The CompTIA exam objectives are going to tell you exactly what you need to know to pass the exam. So don't miss the opportunity to use these exam objectives. They are extremely useful. They tell you everything you need to know. You can get to those with by going to the Google machine, typing in CompTIA exam objectives, or go to professormesser.com/objectives, and I'll be able to do that as well and be able to show you those pieces. I do one of these study groups every month. So this is the one for September. There's one coming in October. The next one will be on October the 12th. You can always check to see what the latest live event is going to be by going to professormesser.com/calendar. That way you'll be able, if you're watching this months from now, you'll be able to see when the next one of these might be. I do an A+ study group, a Network Plus study group, and a Security Plus study group every month. They are generally on Wednesdays at 12 noon Eastern time, which is my local time. And there is so at least 3 of those happening every month. You can see next week is Security Plus. So this time and this day, Wednesday, a week from today, we'll have the Security Plus study group, and all this is out on the calendar. Well, this brings us to the end, can you believe it, of another study group. We're always putting things out on Twitter and YouTube. If you type in professormesser.com/anything, you'll get to Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, whatever it happens to be. You'll be able to get there. Don't forget about the course notes at professormesser.com/NPCN. Also, the pop quiz that I've got online is professormesser.com/pop quiz. So you can try yourself. I think I might have at least another 100 or so questions to put out there for Network Plus. So I'll be constantly adding questions out there. They're just ready to go. I just need to troubleshoot. Don't forget about the Net Labs at professormesser.com/netlabs. And thanks to GTS Learning for also sponsoring everything we do. Of course, the calendar is there if you need to know when the next study group happens to be. And stick around here, although the formal 1-hour study group is ending. I will be opening up the phone lines. We'll just figure out and talk about different topics that happen to come through on your calls and in the chat room. We'll figure out those pieces. I'll stick around. We got the stream going, so why not? It's a perfect thing to do. I want to thank all of you for joining us for this first hour, though. And we will see you next time on the study group. That one went fast. I always say that. Of course it went fast. Just stream through there. Okay, let's bring up the chat room. Hello, chat room. I've been watching your shenanigans as it went by. Let's host the show. Oh, I probably need a Skype up, don't I? Skype not going to be loud. It's not going to be loud. Start the show. Let's do this other thing. Oh, what was the spray? The spray was, once I get called in, I'll show you what spray, because I'm going to use it again. Let's call in, just as you will, to these phone lines to be able to do this. There it is. Except I can't hear it. Oh, it's not turned on.
Studios host and
yes.
Screener line.
What do I do?
Please enter your show number and press pound.
Oh, there by show number, press pound. If I can remember my show number, which is, oops, don't want to do that. One of your enterprising people. Okay. And welcome. There we go. See, welcome. It is 1, 2, 3, 4. It's Ninja. It's Ninja 1 to get there. So am I in the chat? It says no calls. There I am. There we are. So if you wanted to ask a question, you can always answer in the chat room. In the chat room, I'll be watching them go by. This is the live event chat that's here live on the Professor Messer website, the bottom of all of this. Or you can call in 1-855-785-RJ45. It is toll-free and Skype-free, 855-785-7545. So during the show, I used a spray. It's awful, and it's so good. This is Singer's. See it focus. Focus. No, it's not going to focus. That's as good as it's going to get, people. It's the Singer's Saving Grace. This one is the Soothing Throat Spray Serious Cinnamon. Serious Cinnamon. It is a herbal medicine, and it is really good. It is super good. It's monster good. It tastes, it needs to be cinnamon. I couldn't imagine not having the cinnamon taste in there to be able to do that, because it's something. But boy, it gets in your throat, makes it feel awesome, which I really need when I'm talking for an hour and an hour and an hour. Active ingredient, who knows, people? The active ingredient, very small. The active ingredient's tiny. Contains all sorts of roots. If you ever wanted to put a root into the back of your throat here, plenty of them. Any root you can think of is in this, along with essential oils, which if they were so essential, wouldn't they be everywhere? But that's what's in here. A bunch of other stuff too. Singer's Saving Grace. I don't own stock. They're just awesome. Before I go on the, before I start this, about 15 minutes before, I get a Vocal Zone, which is another, I don't have it, the box sitting here, it's a big red box, Vocal Zone. That kind of sets things going, makes things, it gives a good foundation to work on. And that along with the coffee. Yeah, this somebody mentioned, hey, is that Contigo? It is Contigo. And it's Contigo. This is a full cup of coffee. That's why it's Contigo, people. Right over my very expensive TriCaster. I would not do that normally. Don't do that. Just don't. That's just a bad idea. Don't ever point the weapon at anything you don't want to destroy. So I probably shouldn't do that. But it's awesome because I can knock it over. I can have it sitting upside down on my desk and it won't leak. Somebody was mentioning giving these away as gifts. I did that this last holiday season. Everyone I knew got one of these because I just think it's so awesome. I love these. And keeps your coffee very warm. For that. Yeah, the Contigo. Would not buy anyone else. Just pretty well everything I would do is in that. The TriCaster. So that's one of the things I was mentioning. That big, funny looking lit up display right here is from my TriCaster. It's from a company called NewTek. Is that got the name right? I think so. The TriCaster is a video and audio switcher. You can kind of see the console for it. That's right here. I've showed you guys this before. I think I might be able to even show you the video switcher part that's on here so you can see what I see. I've got a controller app. So I can switch around. There we go. So right now you're looking at the bird cam. I'm going to show you what I see. That's what I see. So I have a screen that's showing you all of these different inputs, different outputs. I can manipulate the audio. I can change what I see first and second. It's all in here. This is what the TriCaster does. So I line up all the video on here, and then I'm able to switch between all of those different components. Whoops, I changed the wrong thing. Let's put the head there. There we go. We'll put the bird cam back to, this is the bird cam. So back to the bird cam, which is different than the bird feeder. This is the bird cam. And so I can control all of those through, you would think you just need 4 buttons, but of course, why have 4 buttons when you can have 400? All of these really do something. There are different layers of video. For example, you can see me here, but then I can add on other layers onto this, like the phone number, for instance. So I can put other layers on here, or I can show me sitting here and then put me in the corner, like I did there. We'll put baby right there in the corner. This is extremely useful because everything goes to this one video switching place. I have a matrix switch that switches out all of the audio and video. So I can take audio and video from multiple places, and as you saw through software, I can simply tell my video hub where to send the video, and at that point I can mix it in the TriCaster and then ultimately send it over to you. The TriCaster is what's doing the streaming right now. So everything that you see is from the TriCaster control. So everything goes in, I can see exactly what's going on, and then off it goes to be able to do that. And have those there. Yeah, how many faces can I put up at once? There are quite a number of me's sitting here out here in this view, aren't there? I've got how many displays? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 screens in front of me. Or is it 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? Yeah, 7 screens that are 8, counting the big one up top that you see. Just above all of this is a big, like 50-inch television that all the TriCaster stuff goes on. So it gives me a way that I can see everything going on at once. Maybe 7 or 8 is too much. Maybe it's 1 too many. Is 8 8 displays up here, one too many, but I need all of them. I'm looking at all of them constantly. So it's just, you get used to doing it after a while and getting the streaming going and making that happen. Oh, the spinning red light, the kit. Yeah, everybody likes my Cylons that are here. Down here on the left and the right of me are 19-inch racks. And they're quiet racks. They're designed to be very quiet. They're insulated and cooled separately. And so I have some Blackmagic. The company called Blackmagic makes a lot of audio and video components. And this one is recording the video and the audio. It's recording all of these video streams. There's 2 of them because I'm recording both the live view that you are seeing, which is here on the screen that's bottom right, and I'm also recording the preview screen, which is what I cut to, which is on my left side here. So I'm recording both of those simultaneously because I just happen to have both. When I'm recording my classes or my training videos, I record my screen and I record the headshot of me, this shot of me, simultaneously, and then in post-processing I put the picture in a picture, and I'm able to edit them as separate individual components on there. That's normally what I do I got those specifically so that I can record both of those simultaneously. Now the TriCaster itself is also recording, so I really have 2 different backups going locally, and ideally I used to say, and YouTube of course is recording this, but as I found last week, YouTube did not record properly. It cut out a big section at the beginning, and it cut out about 45 minutes at the end for some reason. I know not why. The stream was great, but for some reason the final recording was not. So having a local recording allowed me to edit, put together a nice 1080p, upload the 1080p version to YouTube, and it worked great. That was fantastic. And now there's a full 2-hour from the very beginning to the very end of the study group for A+, that's out there permanently now. And I really do need to find a way to do this 1080p always. And I've got some ideas on how to do that. I just haven't gotten that far yet to make that happen. Now, all of these things can be done with software. Even though I've got this, I did a lot of this with hardware because I wanted to rely on the video part doing the video and then the computer part doing the computer. But obviously, there are a lot of really good recording systems that you can run on your computer. There are good video switching systems that you can run on your computer. It's something that I didn't want to have to. I wanted those to be separated so that I could get whatever computer I wanted and not have to rely on, do I need to do something special with the video switching? Have the video switching its own little world and have the computer part as its own world. And that, from my perspective, makes it much easier for me to switch things out and be able to do this. The audio board, folks in the chat room are asking about, is over to my left. There's the mixer. It's kind of hard to see. This is a mixer that is from AXIA, A-X-I-A. It's a Radius Core, Q-O-R. It's a Core 16. It is a all digital audio mixing system. So I'm putting all of my audio into this, and it's immediately digitizing. It's all doing it digitally, and using even IP protocols to communicate to third-party products. I've got some audio components. You can see them flashing there to my bottom left down here. And I'm communicating to those devices over IP, multicast actually, and then back to the mixing system. This is just the console for it. The actual mixer is down here in this 19-inch rack to my left. And it's really just a Linux type of environment. I never see the Linux, but that's where all of the audio is happening. There's a separate, this console works just like a regular mixer though. I move up the mixing potentiometers. I can slide them back down, but in the software, it's changing what the values happen to be. For me, I see an analog up and down. And what's actually happening is digitally moving it up and down. What's nice about that is I can have other things coming in. So for those of you, if you were to have, when people call in to the show, for instance, I have the phone calls coming in, but they're not hearing an echo of themselves going back. If you have a regular mixer, you have to set that up very specifically so that it doesn't send a person's audio back to them. It'd be very difficult if you were talking and then you heard yourself coming back into the telephone. So that's what's called a mix minus type of configuration. I'm mixing but taking out their audio when I'm sending back the rest of the show. Because this is a digital system, I just tell it this input is a phone. And it goes, okay, I'm automatically going to mix minus that. And I can do it. I can plug in 8 phone lines effectively, and it will automatically mix minus all of that without me doing any special kinds of configurations. And for those of you that have worked in audio mixing before and dealing with mix minus on a regular analog setup, it can be a little bit of a challenge. So it's a little weird to be able to do that. That's why I chose the system. Is it overkill? Yeah, it absolutely is. I don't have a boat. I don't have a vacation home, but I needed something that I could rely on that would be easy to set up, that I didn't have to worry about the details. Plus, I could do anything with it. I wanted to have a better audio and video setup than what I could find at a local television station, because I wanted to create a free set of training videos that was produced professionally, produced better than what most people would produce in a studio. And I think we've been able to accomplish that. You can't even see above me is that I have a set of tracks. I've got lights hanging from the ceiling all over the place. There are audio systems that are here. There's more behind the scenes. I keep saying I'm going to create a video behind the scenes and make that really describe everything that's here. But you don't have to have this to create. I created my earlier videos with much less than this. I did all the recording on the camera instead of in a TriCaster or on a separate recording system. I recorded the screen using screen recording software. Then I simply took the file off the camera. I took the file off my computer. I put it into a video editor and I edited that. That's it. It's that hard. You don't need any of this other stuff to get an idea that's in your head and somehow make a video of it. This just makes it easier. It makes it so I can sit in here and I can concentrate on making the content instead of the production of the content. And obviously that means I don't have to have a producer. I don't have to have other people in here for me to create my video training materials. I don't have to rely on anyone else. The moment I start working on a project, I can create a video. I can create the content for the video, also create the slides. I will sit down in this chair. I'll record the slides. Everything gets recorded using the audio and video setup that I've got here. And then I can pull those files directly from the SSD recorder that they're being recorded on. I can edit from the SSD, so I don't have to copy files. Video files are very big, saves a lot of time. I can edit directly from those files, create the output that I want, render the final version, upload it to YouTube, and nobody else was involved. And that's the key for having a system like this and a business model like this that is viable. Would not be able to do this if I had a sound person, if I had a video person. It doesn't work. There's the money part of it doesn't work out right. So it was very important for this business model that everything been self-contained. Those are the decisions you have to make when you're setting up a company. How are we going to do this? What is the structure? How many people are we going to need? How much does that cost? At the end of the day, is there a profit? Can I keep the lights on? And that's what you go through in figuring out all of those pieces and making that happen. There's a lot more to it here, of course, and I've got a lot of other things happening, but it's very funny. I often say it's kind of humorous that I've put together all of this and then I've spent the last 6 months writing 2 books. So I'm glad I'm able to do the live events, because if I wasn't able to do this, what would I do with all this stuff? I would need to create another video series. Hey, what if I did that? I got to work on that. Got to get another video series. So in the chat room, asking about any chance for a Linux Plus study group. Nope. Next question. Well, that was sort of a flippant answer, wasn't it? I don't have any current plans to do Linux Plus. Linux Plus, first, it's huge. It's enormous. And it is, I think it would be well received. I think it would be well viewed. I think that a very viable project to work on. It would be a massive amount of time spent on it. And that's a problem. One of the problems I have associated with it. The other problem is it's one that creates a lot of feedback. there's a high amount, because I've done a number of Linux videos. You can go out to my YouTube channel, and I've got 10 or 12 Linux videos I started on. The plan was I was going to create a Linux Plus course. And then some of the feedback I got was one that was not what I was hoping for. So I decided, let's table that for now and see if something else might work right to have that happen. I think that was probably the best decision along those lines. Well, maybe I'll go back to it. Linux Plus was extremely viable. I got great views on those videos. So from a business perspective, the content had some legs. Obviously, there were people that wanted that content. But that's just something that never worked out, unfortunately. Do I still work outside my home? I have not worked for anyone else in a year and a half. So I've been doing this full-time myself a year and a half. I have 2 employees now. It's something I don't plan on ever working outside my home again. I plan on sitting here and doing this. As long as you keep watching the videos, we're good. So that's the real key, is to keep doing this and keep everything else running at the same time. It's really my challenge, is making all of that happen. Let's have a look at how the stream is going. In fact, some of you are saying, hey, is there stream stuff happening? Nope, stream looks good. Everything here is fine. Now, YouTube doesn't give you a lot of feedback on the stream, but I can absolutely see that the stream is there and everybody's still receiving things. So that part's good. Sometimes when you're having a problem communicating to YouTube, which is entirely possible, because although I am on a business line here, it still is a Comcast cable modem connection, and you never know when things might go a little awry. My connection has been very solid, though, generally speaking. The bird feeder live stream at birdfeeder.live is one that's always running 24/7. I've got plenty of bandwidth here to run that stream at a full HD and my stream at full HD and even more on top of that. So I don't think there's any problems with bandwidth, but you never know about congestion and the network and the way Comcast is handling things. It's always susceptible to something in that first mile, or at least locally, before it ever gets to YouTube. Now, once it gets to YouTube, I'm sending a single stream to them. They are then converting it into a number of different formats. They're converting it into a mobile format. They're converting it into a standard definition format. They're creating the 720p format that I'm sending, and that takes 10 to 15 to 20 seconds. So everything you're seeing me say is really already happened 20 seconds ago. And then finally, they send it out to you. So there are many places along the line where things can get congested. It can be my local network. It could be the rendering process at YouTube. It could be their network process. It could be on your side. You just never know. And being able to make that happen becomes a little bit of an issue. And of course, as somebody mentioned in the chat room, you could always change the video quality. Maybe that will help if you're having problems that are local on your side. Now, if the problem's on YouTube side or the problem's on my side, that's not going to help you, obviously, to be able to do that. So some suggestions in the chat room. Routing next month. I did routing last month. We did some routing. So maybe it would be time to do routing next month as well. If you missed the routing things that we did last month, that might be a good one to look at. We did some route summarization. It took a big chunk of time, so it might be something to go through. The InfoSec videos might be fun to do. The last real job I had working for someone else was in the information security arena for 7 years. And that's a lot of the background I have is really based on that. That was a fun time. So security would be fun to do. Security Plus takes up a good bit of time. That fills that niche for me, I think, and those pieces that are there. The connection I have for this is a standard standard connection from Comcast. I say standard. It's a standard business connection from Comcast. Now, the reality is a business line from Comcast is coming into my house effectively because I do all of this at home. The studio is separate from my house, but the house actually has a separate Comcast connection. This one's dedicated for the studio, but it's the same wire from the street. So it's not like I've got special business wires coming in. It's the same connection, but I get a higher service quality on this. If I have any problems with my connection, they are here immediately to resolve things. I've had routers fail on a wireless modem, a cable modem fail on a Sunday, and they've shown up with a new modem hours later. Here's your new modem. You're back up and running again. That's what you get for paying the extra for the business line, and making all those things happen. It becomes very useful to have that whenever you're having problems. But we just went through, if you look at the A+ study group from last week, I described the hurricane that came through, because a hurricane literally went over my house 2 weeks ago. And that hurricane took out a massive amount of trees. This area I live in, Tallahassee, Florida, has laws on the books that prevent you from cutting down a tree. You have to get special permission to cut trees down here. And because of that, it's a bit of a bird sanctuary. It's an area that if you saw it from the sky, you wouldn't know there was a city down there, because it's just a canopy of trees. It's remarkable. But of course, when big storms come through, we have more problems with tree limbs coming down over the lines. So I didn't get extra internet coming up faster because I had a business line. They had to go out to the street and run new cable. And so effectively, I got the internet connection came up from my house at the same time it did for my studio. There's really nothing more you could do there. Nope, there's not a dedicated line to the bird feeder. It's not a T1. This is much faster than a T1, obviously, because my line coming into the studio, I think, is 150 megabit down and 20 megabit up. They are putting in and have already put in some fiber in town. So hopefully they'll get fiber out to me, and they're already offering 2 gigabit synchronous, 2 gig up, 2 gig down for that as well. So that becomes useful. If that gets to me, then we'll just put up all kinds of streaming stuff for those pieces. That would be awesome to have that there. Is one of the things I like to have is that particular piece of it. In the chat room, going back to the APIPA, A, could you use a static IP address of 169.x.x.x on your home network? Well, if it's not a 169.254, yes. The 169.254 is that range that is dedicated to APIPA. Your local address should not allow you to manually configure an IP address that is in that APIPA range. But you could absolutely use those others. In fact, let's do a who is of that range, because that's not a private IP. You shouldn't use it anyway. It's not a private IP address. That was just not something. You should use the RFC 1918 addresses for those, the 10 dots, the 192.168s, 172.16s, because 169 dot, let's use 1.0.0/8 and see who that is. So that is one that is dedicated to, well, you can't see what I see. So let me bring this up. I did a who is for 169.1.0.0/16. Did I use? I think I did. And it shows me that this first range, 169.1 through 1.0 to 169.1.3, is been given out by the NIC in Africa. So it's something being used, in this case, Johannesburg, South Africa, and it's already dedicated to this particular person at this particular organization. Looks like it's being used for the headquarters of AfriHost. So that's one where anything going to that IP address is getting routed to Africa. So that's why you probably wouldn't use that IP address range. Not a good idea. That's why we have RFC 1918 addresses to do. Let's see if I can bring up my list of those addresses. That's why we have these public and private, IP addresses, private IP addresses of the 10 dots, the 172.16s to 172.31s, and the 192.168s to be able to do that on there. So that becomes handy to have those on there, being able to work through those different pieces. So use those 10 dots, use the RFC 1918 addresses. You could, of course, assign internal IP addresses to be whatever you want. And if you're natting, it's not really going to matter. It's going to be natted to something else on the outside anyway. But why complicate things and make that happen? Jason apparently asked a question and I ignored it. And so he's asking again and I'm not ignoring it. So the question is, you have a bachelor's of science in IT. Congratulations. 3 years of experience working in IT. Tech support and project management. You say sadly, but that's a great place to start. Tech support. That was my first role in IT, was basically help desk tech support. and trying to move into information security. Good for you. I loved information security. I thought it was great. I think it's a great thing to do. Is there a good junior networking / security role I should look for at this level? Yeah, you can send it again. I don't mind. If you're planning to get into information security, and I'm going to speak as someone who is in IT security, not the computer science security, which is really the security of applications and programming and that side. We talk about firewalls, proxies, intrusion prevention, anything dealing with security at the network and the host level. We're really talking about a very wide range of knowledge that you need to have. But almost all of this knowledge base is really based on networking. The best thing you can do if you're planning to get into security is to get as strong a foundation in networking as possible. Although I talked about security, you're telling me to go do networking. Yes, that's what I'm telling you. Do as much networking as you possibly can, whether it is a junior networking, whether it is a network administrator role, whether it's configuring and setting up switches, configuring and setting up routers. Anything dealing with the network level is what you need to build a very strong foundation for information security. So let me give you an example of why I say that. First, the reason I say that is that that's the way it works practically everywhere I go. So prior to doing this full time, I worked for a information security startup full time that ultimately went public. So it's one where I got to go from a very small company to a very big company, and I got to visit other companies by doing this. So we were selling products to other security professionals. So I got to go into the smallest and the biggest organizations in the eastern United States, primarily eastern U.S. and eventually the southeast U.S. So I got to go into some of the largest data centers in the world and talk to security professionals at the biggest companies you can think of in Atlanta, in Washington, D.C. area. When you talk about in the Carolinas, talking to large corporations, talking to state and local government, talking to school systems, talking to hospitals, to military, just across the board. And in 99.9% of those cases, the people I was talking to in the security group started out in networking. And I know because the job I had prior to that, I talked to the networking people. So now I show up and go, oh, you're working in security now, because it makes perfect sense. You're connecting up, for instance, let's take the staple of IT security, the firewall. The firewall plugs into the network, and in many cases, traditionally it routes. So you need to be very well versed in routing technologies, dynamic routing, static routing, understanding OSPF, BGP, understanding the EIGRP or other internal routing technologies that you use. You're plugging into the middle of a network that's probably run by the network team. So you're going to be working very closely with the network team, but you got to plug in your firewall. What IP addresses do you need? You need to understand subnetting. You need to understand where those are connecting. Do you need to understand what switch they're connecting to? Will you be doing link aggregation to and from your firewall? That link aggregation is big on networking. You need to be setting up to a remote site an IPsec tunnel, which is at its core, it's security. But functionally, it's all about networking, setting up a tunnel, configuring IP addresses, making sure the data is going to route properly across those connections, and then setting up the security behind them. Being able to configure intrusion prevention, URL filtering, connecting your firewall not in a routed mode, but in a switch mode, in a inline or virtual wire mode. All of these things are so foundational on the networking side that no one really wants a security person until they are very, very, very well versed on the network side. Now, that doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes there are junior security people that will get hired and they'll teach them the networking part as they go. So I'm not saying that this is the only path that's available to you, but it is the best path if you're planning to get into security, is getting that foundation in networking. So it doesn't matter what type of role in networking. Most of the time when you're starting in networking, it's as an administrator. You're a switch administrator. You're managing and setting up the switches in your environment, maybe a router that's connecting to the internet, and you're in charge basically of the routers and the switches, and maybe setting up the VLAN infrastructure. On a complex network, it's one where there's multiple VLANs. There are redundant VLAN configurations. There are data center configurations, which are different than the configurations for your users, obviously. That is the key, is getting as much stick time, getting as much hands-on as you can with those types of configurations. Pretty important to know that up to layers 3 and 4 of the OSI model. With networking, it always helps to know up to layer 7, because they're going to come to you and say the network is broken. It's sort of the standard thing to the network team always hears is the network isn't working. The network is down, or the network is slow. Well, maybe it's your database server, or maybe it's the web server, but they start with you, because I find very often the networking people are sometimes the most knowledgeable with technology, because you're on the network, you're sort of at the core, you kind of understand where everything is going. You're the smartest person in the room when it comes to figuring out the data flows across the network. So they often come to you and say, the network's slow. What they really are saying is, something is really messed up here, and you're really the only one who can help us. Please help us. So you're often in the position of performing the packet captures, pointing out where the delays are, timing out how long it takes for traffic to go into a server, how long the server thinks about it before it spits out an answer. That is the key. Once you become very accustomed and set up, you're very familiar with routing and switching and VLAN technologies, link aggregation, dynamic VLANs, understanding how to make all these things plug in, connect, redundant, resolve issues on there, you're ready to go into security, because that's another step where you can start learning about firewalls, intrusion prevention, proxies, understanding URL filtering, VPN technologies for end users, connecting up all of our devices together. That's the other side of it. And that's the next step up from the networking side, really, in my mind, is adding on to it from the security perspective. Becomes really useful to have that there. And you've already got, people want, on the networking side, they want people who are knowledgeable in the other technologies. I started learning as much as I could about operating systems. And so when Windows 3.0 came out and suddenly there was this graphical environment that everybody thought was awesome, I learned as much as I could about how that worked. I got into the details of Windows and its operation, understanding the architecture of the operating system, understanding what components in the OS did what, understanding what components I could put on a server and what components I could put on the local workstation, how much traffic would go across the network if I did that. Finding all of those pieces and understanding them at that level allowed me to also troubleshoot them much easier. So when something happened on the screen, I went, that's funny. That looks like this kind of problem. And I was able to resolve those faster because I understood the operating system. So when they started looking for networking people who were able to network all of these operating systems, it just made sense that you would get somebody familiar with the OS to now become more familiar with the network. Did I know I was going to move into that? No, I didn't. I saw somebody playing around with a sniffer, which was packet capture from Network General, packet capture device. I said, what is that? They said, well, you can see all the packets going across the network. I said, show me more of that. What are you talking about? And they showed me the traffic going between the server and the client. And here it asks for a file, and here are the pieces of the file coming back. I said, what do you mean pieces of the file? Like, we can't send the whole file at once. You have to cut it up into smaller pieces and send it across the network. And so I started seeing all of those pieces together. What's doing that? Oh, it's the file transfer mechanism. It's the protocols in use. What are these protocols? And it just got deeper and deeper. So then I began learning more about the way the network operates. And when you understand the network at that level, you can really apply it across multiple components. Yes, I was just a small child during those Windows 3.0 days. Just a tiny, no, it wasn't high school days, but thank you. It's very kind of you. I didn't know where that was taking me, was sort of the point to the end of that story. I didn't understand that there would be an internet. At that time, there was no such thing as an internet. There was obviously ARPANET, and I'd worked with some of those other networks when I worked in college. I worked in the computer center where we had mainframes and supercomputers. And I saw some of those larger networks, but if people weren't on them, it was universities were on them. And so I really started just following where the path was taking. Like, networking is pretty interesting. Let's learn about that. And that got me into a whole set of other things. Well, that was interesting. Whoa, this internet thing came out. I happen to be on the network. Let's see what we can do with that. Wow, let's do more with protocol analysis so we can fix the internet. Oh, that's interesting. Now let's do some security so we can secure the internet. And that kind of took me to the next. So I didn't know any of those things would be there. There was no Twitter. There was no Facebook. There was no YouTube. There was no live streaming. I could not have imagined when Windows 3.0 came out that I'd be sitting in front of this setup and thinking, well, I'll just do some live streaming and talk to millions of people around the world with these crazy little Q&A that we do every month. You just don't know. You just follow the path. So you'll feel it pushing you. You feel it behind you, like that's what you should go do, and you should do that. You should follow that push wherever it happens to go, because that's really what's going to make the difference. If you become as knowledgeable as you can with a particular set of technologies, you will have some very important skills, some very well sought after skills. So just don't become familiar with Windows. Understand everything there is to know about the operating system. Don't just become familiar with networking on a switch. Understand everything there is to know about that switch. And if there's something that someone in your organization doesn't want to bother with, they don't want to touch that part, that seems a little difficult, that's exactly what you should be doing. In my environment, when I worked at an insurance company, this was my second big job, was working at this insurance company, and really third when I got into the networking group. There were these, we had a big mainframe because it's an insurance company, and they had all these gateways in front of the mainframe. And the gateway was the way that our personal computers ended up talking to the mainframe, because obviously PCs, Windows, doesn't talk to mainframes natively. There had to be a go-between, and the go-between was this computer running some software and set up with these network cards that talked network on one side and mainframe on the other. Nobody wanted to touch them. Nobody wanted anything to do with them, because if you looked at them funny, they would crash. And in fact, they were crashing a lot. Every day, the gateway was crashing, and sometimes multiple times, but nobody wanted to touch it. And I said, well, let me spend some time with it. I know nothing about this. I'm scared to death of it. Let's go figure it out. And what you really find out in technology is that the fear of what you are working on is actually much worse than it really is. If you weren't so afraid of it, it really wouldn't be a problem. But we're so afraid of these technologies that we don't want to touch them for fear of the unknown, for fear of something. So what I did, I asked the mainframe guys, can I just get a test link to the mainframe? I'll plug in my test network on this side, and let me just play around with this gateway. Turns out it was a machine. They all booted from floppy drive. Hey. And the floppy drive configuration ran DOS. It was a mainframe configuration. It's amazing anything worked back then, isn't it? But it worked great. You had hundreds of people connecting to this device to get access to the mainframe. And just by changing some of the memory allocation settings in DOS, I was able to make the environment much more stable. I was able to really understand all of the different configuration settings for that software. The ones I didn't understand, I called the company. And I said, we got a bunch of these. We must have paid you a ton of money for this. So what does this mean? They said, oh, well, here's what it means. And if you set this up and you'll have much better effect, and here's what way it would work. Like, okay, we'll try that. I'll edit the files. We'll plug it in. We'll run it on this test system for a little while. And we were able to not only become much more stable in the operation, which was great. That was the ultimate goal of that particular project. But now I knew everything there was to know about this gateway, and I wasn't afraid of it. So when people said, oh, we got to do this thing with the gateway, I'm like, no problem. I got it. We'll change configuration here. We'll reboot with this one. We'll make this change. We'll add another machine. We'll connect it up. But you really had to spend the time on the front end understanding the network side of it. I had to learn a whole new set of technologies with IBM mainframes and how they communicated. But that's your goal, is jump in it with both feet, really understand everything you can. And at that point, you can't help but be a valuable member of the team, because now you have a set of skills that nobody else has. And it works this way regardless of the technology. It works this way with video editing. It works this way with database management. It works this way with file servers. It works this way in web services. It works this way with networking. It works this way everything. So that's real key in being able to figure out, what do we do next? How do I go to the next level? Well, figure out what you're doing now and become a master at it, and you can't help but now move to whatever that next level is going to be. Sometimes it's in your own organization. Sometimes it's somewhere else. One of the things that's very common in our industry, in IT specifically, is that we don't have the same job controls over our job or the same loyalty of our jobs that we did back in our grandparents' or our parents' days. It just doesn't work that way anymore. You used to be able to get a job and you stay with a company for 30 years. And that was the company you stayed with, and you moved up from the mailroom, and now you're a vice president of vice presidents. And it just doesn't work that way anymore. It certainly could, but that's not really the norm in IT anymore. The way it works now in IT is you tend to get a core set of skills that's very unique and very well sought after, and then you move to an organization that wants to pay you for that. Because the place where you are doesn't have the same value of you that other people will have of you. But you're here. You can't possibly be an expert in this. We see you come through the door. You're local. You don't even have to fly here. What could you possibly know? The person who's smart is the one that has to arrive on a plane. If you're the same guy from down the street, you're an idiot. But if you came here in a plane, you're obviously knowledgeable. But you can do that in a regular city, of course, as you just move to another organization that needs those skills. So we generally in IT tend to stay in organizations for 1 year, 2 year, 5 year. I stayed 7 years at my last job, which is an amazing amount of time in an IT role or in a technology role, and then moved to another place. Now, in your organization, if you have a massive organization, I've worked for these massive companies before, and I was able to move up by staying with the same company. But I wasn't in the same job. I started in one job, I moved to another thing, I got a management role, whatever, and I moved up. But you may find that you just have to go to another company to be able to do that. Yes, plane rides make you the smart person. This is the reality. And I can't, you're on the phone, I need you here, you have to get on a plane, you have to come see me because you must be smart. And I explain to people, I'm the same dummy that I talk to people local. And I'm on a plane. I came to see you, but I'm still the same dumb guy. So I have a dumb guy that's here local, and he's the smart guy when he flies to me. So which one of us do you want? One of those. I think networking is a good place. Other people in the chat room saying considering a move to networking. I think that's a good move. I think networking is the jumping off point. I think once you have the basic foundation of networking, you can really go do anything. You can go do data center administration or networking in a data center. You can do database management. You can write applications. You can do much more networking. You can do security. You can move into the workstation management roles. Now, mobile device management roles. There's entire jobs that have been created. You can move into virtualization because now you know how all of these networking technologies work. And now networking technologies are all virtualized too. Now we got a virtual switch and a virtual router, but they all connect the same way. You're just dragging lines on the screen instead of plugging in wires. That's all the same thing, back and forth. A lot of people ask, well, then should I learn these programming languages like Python? They say if you're going to do networking, you have to know Python. I don't necessarily subscribe to that yet. I've not bought into that yet. Software-defined networking, SDN, is really what's driving that move to learn more programming specifically with Python, because that seems to be the language that everyone has latched onto to be able to create an automated software-defined networking infrastructure, which is true. There are companies doing that and using Python and making all of that happen. But they're also talking about networking in general becoming the software world where there's no more hardware, it's all software. I just have not been able to see any evidence of that yet. I haven't seen any large amount of people that are grasping the idea of SDN or that even need a lot of the benefits of SDN quite yet. There is a tipping point, of course, and it's constantly moving, but we'll have to see what happens with SDN and whether people can really take advantage of the automated and the cost-effective part of that. It seems that the virtualization in general has provided the capabilities most people need, and they don't need to put another layer of SDN on top of that. Or maybe they do, and they just don't realize it yet. but it's not necessarily about what people need. It's about what they're doing. And my job and the job that you have is to give people what they're currently doing, not what they're not doing. I think you should always keep an eye on that, but I can't see, learning that technology now in the hopes that it's going to get you a job. There's not a lot of jobs out there to do that. That doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, though. There's also a lot of jobs out there that are doing a lot of SDN and virtualization. So it can absolutely be a good place to go. It's just not very common in that. How am I learning Python? I'm not. I don't need to know Python. There's no SDN here. It's a box in front of me. That's it. I do nothing relating to that. I did quite a bit of SDN API, but not a ton of Python. A little bit of Python, not a ton of Python back in the day, back in my last job. But it's not something I was that interested in. I'm not a computer science person. I don't love programming. I do enough to get the things done that I need to have done. So, for instance, if you've gotten my latest book, not my first book, but my latest book for A+, I have about 700 questions in there, multiple choice questions. And there's questions, there is answers, and I wrote the whole book in a database. I effectively put hundreds of questions into a database in MySQL, and I simply wrote a script that said randomly go through the database, grab any question relating to these topics, stick it on a page one after the other, and write the book. So I effectively click a button and the book gets written. So I did all the work beforehand, but I wrote a bunch of scripts that did that. That's a good use of my programming skills. That's as far as I go. No more programming for me. It's just not my thing. Other people that love Python, that jump into it, they're going to do SDN, rock on, go do that. There's plenty of places looking for that kind of thing, and you should become familiar with that if that's something that interests you, because there are people that want those skills and need those skills. Go do that. Find what interests you and go do it. Jump into it. Learn everything you can learn about it and go do that. I'm sure it's great for math. I'm sure it's great for security testing. Go do that. Go make those things happen. It's just not one that I ever had any interest in myself personally. And there's a lot of places that could use that. After completing the Network Plus and passing, can I get a job as a network administrator? Do I have to start as a technician? You have to start wherever they'll put you. I'm sure there are smaller organizations that might throw you in to be a network administrator, but the Network Plus exam doesn't really qualify you to actually touch a switch yet. It tells you all about the technologies around it. You understand the advantages and disadvantages of spanning tree protocol. You understand how to perform a trace route, but how do you configure that port on that switch to be on that VLAN? You got me. Normally you would have to go to the manufacturer of that switch, learn their command line or their configuration settings, and then be able to type that in and make that particular configuration change happen. So normally it's a step after Network Plus where you're finally at the point where you're administering a network. So you would go get a Cisco certification, a Juniper certification, an HP certification, whatever it is that you're using in your environment to connect things together. So it just depends. Some places will bring people in who are network knowledgeable and train them. And it depends on the philosophy of the organization. If you are someone who's not so great in networking, they can hire you for less money and train you, which is a great philosophy because you get a job, you're at least making what you're worth. You then learn more things, and then they'll either move you up in the organization or you can go do something else somewhere else. So that becomes useful too with those pieces. My favorite football team. Now we're getting good questions. My favorite football team is, I don't have one. I don't watch football. I don't have time. I'm writing books and stuff. You know how much time it takes to watch a football game? It's a huge suck of time. If you go to a football game, it's even worse, a bigger suck of time. So I don't really watch football. My favorite team is whichever one is on when I'm watching it. One of the things that I've just become, because I spend so much time creating content. And by the way, how did I not mention this? Tomorrow, the 15th, Messer Studios turns 10 years old. So our birthday is tomorrow. This company was officially incorporated 10 years ago, tomorrow, the 15th. So for 10 years, whenever I have a spare moment, because for the bulk of that 10 years, I was working a regular job, 9 to 5, and really, I used to work half day somewhere else, which was 8 to 8. And then after 8, I was able to do this. So one of the challenges is that you spend so much time creating content that you really don't have time for those other things. I'll get back to football eventually. And I don't mind watching the games. They're on. I'm walking by. But that's one of those things where you just have to have the time to keep up. I don't know anybody's names. I don't know what teams there are. I don't know if they're good or bad. It was a joke on my last job when I worked that last job for 7 years. And we go see people on a Monday or Tuesday. Usually a Monday, we'd meet them for lunch, see a customer, and they talk about whatever team was local. We go to Atlanta, talk about the Falcons. See, that's a football team. And what about that game on Sunday? And of course, I would be with other people in my company I knew no idea who was on the team. I know football. I understand the game. I can talk about football. But I would always say, yeah, the defense wins games every time. You got to watch the turnovers. Turnovers will kill you. It's all about execution. It's execution, execution, execution. They came to play. No question. They came to play. So I would just spit out the footballism, and people go, yeah, defense really held them. See, defense really held them. Because there's always turnovers. There's always a defensive play. There's always something. In my studio, you don't even see it anymore. I've moved it out of the way. I've got a cricket bat back there. I like watching cricket, but again, it's time suck. You just don't have time. Folks on the in the chat, I guess it was 2 or 3 study groups ago, I wore my Australian Rules football shirt, my Melbourne Demons shirt. It's my team. So if you want to ask who my team is, it's the Melbourne Demons. There you go. That's who it is. That's fine as any. I love Australian Rules football. That was great. I like watching American football. I like Australian Rules football. I like watching rugby. I like watching cricket when I have the time. I don't like British football. Soccer is what it is. I don't like golf. I guess people just really have to be angry at each other. Although cricket's not that way. I like cricket. Cricket's so refined. It's such a skill for that, being able to be able to have that going. Okay, back to technology. My hard drive array. Let's talk about that. What is the address for my rack station? It's by Synology. My Synology rack station, which, it's currently not turned on. I had it turned off because a storm came through yesterday. It's a Synology 1512, I believe. Synology 1512. Is that right? Or is it 1215? It's 1215, isn't it? A 1215. Yes, it's a DS 1215. No, it's not. It's not even close to that. I don't know what it is. So I'll have to find that out at some point. Is it a 2415? No. Well, I don't think I think it's another version of what they have. It's a work group. I think it's a 2415, although the picture of that didn't look right. But that might be it. 2415. It is a 12 drive device from Synology. They don't sell that particular model anymore. But if I was to get another hard drive array, a NAS, it would be a Synology. It's just been fantastic. I really like it. I really like what it is, but I like that it does more. So, for example, the Synology, I have two Synologies. I have one that I started with, which was a 5-bay unit. And what Synology has is they have surveillance software, like home surveillance, where it will just collect video from all of your cameras. And that's what I use to store data from my bird feeder. So we were talking about this in the pre-show, is that in my backyard, I've got a bird feeder, which you can find on birdfeeder.live. And all of that bird feeder video is not only being streamed from a separate device that's here, but it's also one that I have saved on a Synology running the surveillance software that talks natively the surveillance protocols that are being used, really just streaming protocol. I think it's our RTSP that's really doing to the device, and bringing all that in. So it will also run all kinds of applications on it. Go out to Synology's website, and you'll know. It's the Synology device is a rack mountable 12-bay 15. So it's 1215. So I got it right. 1215. Thank you. See, Jason knows exactly their naming infrastructure and how they do it. So right now, this live stream, well, that's out there is one that's also being saved locally. So if anything happens, just like a normal video surveillance system that you might have in your house or your business, I can go back to any point in time through the Synology front end and quickly find that video. It's also being saved as video files that I can import into my video editing program, which helps as well. And I hope to send more of those out, put more of those on YouTube. I've got one, a woodpecker one that I've got that happened in my daughter is part of the company that handles this side of things. So she is building out those videos as we speak. She's one of the employees that we have here and working on those. That becomes handy to have that there. Well, that brings us to the end of another hour of this. Can you believe it? I cannot believe it. But that's one of those that comes in handy is being able to do this and have it here. I've got another one of these study groups, of course, planned for next month. Next week for security, and next month for Network Plus. You can always go out to professormesser.com/calendar. People ask me all the time in the chat. They send me emails. When's the next thing you're doing? And it's go out to the calendar. Tell you exactly what's going on. One of the things I want to do for those of you asking is to make a Google Calendar of this that you can add to your existing calendar. So it just always will update you and tell you when the next one of these is going to be, so you don't have to add it yourself. Well, we've come to the end. We could go for hours more, couldn't we? But my voice cannot. So we have to end this eventually at some point. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Thank you, chat room, for the questions. Thank you for joining us on our first hour. Remember to send those continuing education units. I'll send those out later today. I try to get those done every week or so. And join us on the next one. Be glad to have you here for the Security Plus next week. And of course, all of our study groups that are happening in October as well. And perhaps we'll see you then on the study group. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you then.